and properly, because there are lots of little mistakes that mostly I can make in town meeting that causes legal problems down the road. He helps make sure that doesn't happen. The town administrator is up on the stage. He's usually there as a source of information, because a lot of times as discussion progresses in town meeting, people need information to make a good decision about things. And the town administrator is often helpful in providing that information. The Board of Selectmen generally sit on the stage. The town clerk is there. She's, he or she, in our town is she, is actually the only other person besides the moderator who is essential to have a legal town meeting. You have to have a moderator, and you have to have a clerk, and you can have a legal meeting. Nobody else has to show up, but the clerk has to, and she keeps the minutes of the meeting. And there's a timekeeper also on the stage for kind of an obscure purpose having to do with one of Westport's bylaws, that we have to time some things. So, about the meeting still, the rules. Probably the strangest thing to people about town meeting when they go is if they've been to some other kind of meeting where people talk and they talk back and forth and the discussion often wanders and so on. Town meeting is run very strictly, very, very strictly by a very strict set of rules. The sources of those rules are the town's bylaws, traditions that we've developed over time, and a small book called Town Meeting Time that a lot of towns, our town's bylaws actually say that we run our town meeting according to town meeting time. And this seems odd and contrived and confining to people at first, I think, the rules. But believe me, they serve the meeting. We've got a lot of stuff to do. And we have a warrant with 70 articles on it, and we need to get through every single one of them. If conversation wanders, discussion wanders away from the point, if people start arguing back and forth among one another, it can degenerate into chaos. Anybody read the news articles about Tiverton's recent town meeting? No matter what side anybody was on, no matter what side they were on, they all agreed that nobody won by having the meeting become chaotic. No matter what side you're on, you lose if the meeting becomes chaotic. So the reasons for the rules are to maintain civility so that people are nice to each other, efficiency, which is really a big one. First town meeting that I chaired went on for 5 long nights. And I can't imagine a dental surgery that would be worse. And so efficiency to move us along quicker, consistency, which really leads to the next one. Fairness comes out of consistency. That when a situation arises, we deal with that situation the same way every time. So nobody has an opportunity to say, wait a minute, when so-and-so tried to do this, it was different. We do it exactly the same way every time, and that's the reason for the really strict rules. And the next few slides are the rules that we go over at every town meeting. These slides are part of the slideshow for every town meeting. That when people want to speak, they have to wait to be recognized. They have to say, Mr. Moderator, step to a microphone, and then I recognize you, and then you speak. People begin by stating their name. That's just a nice little courtesy. A lot of people feel like they're so famous in town that everyone should know who they are, but there are always people who do not. Speaking only to the motion before the meeting, so that we get on one topic and we stay with that topic till we're finished with it, and then we move on to the next topic. We don't start this topic, then move to that topic, then come back to this one, then bring in another one. That would be the end of efficiency and would drive everybody berserk. And then no personal speech. This is a really big one. We don't talk about other people. We absolutely don't ever, reference somebody else's motivation or their character. And to avoid that, we don't even mention other people by name. This is kind of a tricky one, but the real artful speakers at town meetings say, the previous speaker, the gentleman 2 speakers before me, so that because it may sometimes be helpful to address what someone else said, but we don't speak about other people, again, to maintain the civility so that we don't wind up getting angry and people talking to each other. So rude and disrespectful speech not tolerated. When we get into discussion, we start talking about things, everybody can speak, but you only get to speak a second time after everybody else has had a chance to speak their first time. That's actually in our town bylaws. The action as moderator that I am most proud of in the 6 years I've been doing this is instituting a 5-minute time limit for speakers. Because at 5-night town meeting, someone spoke for 40 minutes. And you guys probably can't remember what I said in the first 5 minutes of this talk, because that's just not the way the human brain works. By the time people have spoken for 5 minutes, nobody remembers what they said in their first minute. The really good speakers at town meeting get up, say what they're going to say, elaborate on it very briefly, say it again, and sit down. The best speeches that move the most people happen in a minute or less. As soon as they start going on, people start shuffling through their warrants, looking around, you can hear the buzz start to rise, and it doesn't work. We do allow 10-minute time limits for prearranged presentations, because there are times when an issue is complex enough that somebody needs more than 10 minutes to lay out the case at the beginning. This would usually happen at the beginning of a discussion. It's by prearrangement, and we only do that, we only allow that if the people have visual aids, handouts, something to help people organize the information in their heads so that they can actually pay attention for longer than 10 minutes and make sense out of it. I'm going to skip that because it really doesn't matter at our level. This is a real important issue too when we start discussing things at town meeting, and that is that, and hard for people to get used to, that you always speak through the moderator. If if you wanted to ask town council a question, you would come to the microphone and say, "Mr. Moderator, through you I have a question for town council." And then you would say, you know, whatever. And then I would say, Mr. Whichever, we get several different town councils, but whoever the town council was, he would say, "Mr. Moderator, through you," and then answer the question. Again, it seems kind of contrived and overly strict, but the rare occasions when I've let it slip a little bit and people start talking back and forth between one another, they begin to interrupt each other, intensity in voices starts to rise, so that just absolutely is not tolerated. And when people transgress these rules, they don't get beaten or banished. I, as politely as I can, interrupt and remind them of the rules and say, "Please address your questions through the moderator." And for the most part, we've never had to do anything more than that. So no dialogue between two